going to turn our attention to a serious case of an embryo mix-up here in Hong Kong. Authorities say the latest incident involved biopsy specimens rather than confirmed embryo swaps, and the clinic involved has already had most of its services suspended. To get into this matter further, we're now joined by Nixie Lam, who's a lawmaker. Hi, Nixie. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, morning, everyone.
Morning. So first of all, Nixie, can you just give us and the listeners and the viewers a basic idea of what's actually happening and what happened, basically?
So what happened is, I think late in May, the center find out the specimens got something wrong. It doesn't really match with the parents through the DNA test and everything. So what happened is they sort of contact back to the center to say, well, something is wrong, and then they do some cross-checking and here and there. And they finally report to the department on what happened. But what happened is the whole process took quite some time. The government came out with a press con on the 7th of July, which is about a month or so later.
Right.
So what happened is, I think it's a serious incident. It's actually quite panicking for a lot of the parents, especially me, myself. I think a lot of the listener knows that I just and stuff, and I would describe that as one of the biggest fear for IVF procedure parents to hurt something like that.
The reporting delay or escalation is concerning, the fact that it took over a month. What changes should be made, in your view, to ensure that there is prompt escalation going forward?
I think especially during the any sort of incident that involving embryo or embryo specimen or something like that, I think it needs to be reported immediately within 24 hours. What happened in this case is they find out something's wrong, but rather than reporting to the government departments or other related departments, immediately they decided to do some investigation themselves, including looking into the procedures, including looking at whether the transportation of the specimens got something wrong or so. That's why the whole incident got delayed. But imagine what happened is, while they are doing this sort of investigation process and stuff like that, there are other parents that are actually going through same sort of procedures within the clinic. That will be something is really terrifying because, I mean, at the moment, you know, as you mentioned earlier, all the license procedure were suspended, other than the storage-related ones. There are only 3 licenses that relating to storage that is still running. All the other procedure was stopped. But what happened is, during all those months or so time of their internal investigation, there will be people doing same sort of procedures that might be affected as well. So that sort of delay is totally unacceptable.
Now, Nixie, you already mentioned, right, they should have notified the council within 24 hours.
Well, I question that. Is there a legal obligation?
No.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to ask.
Yeah. So they need to under the law, they need to notify Department of Health within the 24 hours because they are private clinic practice. But then the council booklet doesn't say that it needs to comply or report to the council within the 24 hours. But at the same time, some of the doctor might argue that, well, because they are private practice clinics, they have to comply with the Department of Health 24 hours reporting procedures anyway. So that is something, one of the big question mark, why the clinic itself didn't actually comply with that.
Right. Now, obviously, IVF is a major, I guess, consideration for a lot of couples and families, like those that wanting to have a family. So on that note, do you think it is time for us to review those regulations and see what we can do to improve on it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that Also, a lot of the laws will get like ratified or refined after incident happen. Unfortunately, it will be the opportunity to look into what happens. As we mentioned, of course, a lot of doctors after this incident argues that it doesn't need to be updated because the private practice ordinance already urge them to sort of report in 24 hours. But I think there will be some loopholes, including maybe some of the procedures with the technicians, not only the doctors, might need to be looked into. At the moment, the case is still a bit weird. At the moment, we don't have enough information to sort of understand what actually went wrong. The case already passed down to the police to do a lot of the other investigations. So we just hope we can do some rectification right after the case is revealed.
Nixie, like you said, there are investigations. The investigations into the matter is ongoing by the health authorities and the police. So we don't know at this stage what specifically went wrong, whether this was a case of isolated negligence or deeper systemic weaknesses. But do we know when those investigations are expected to wrap up, and to what extent will the findings be shared with the public?
Well, I don't think anyone can actually tell when will that be end. I mean, that sort of investigation, because we don't know what is involved and how many parties and stuff. But we just hope the government can actually come out with that as soon as possible. Actually, the police department. But I think it's already a very reasonable decision to, at the moment, reasonable decision to ask them to suspend all their other licenses, and including the Department of Health also required them, the council also required them to provide free testing services for all the other procedures they have done before. So they're actually ongoing doing that for that clinic right now.
Now, all of this is obviously, what we're hearing is speculation, but I'm sure the listeners are also very curious as well. Nixie, what do you think are the possible causes of this mix-up?
I can't do any speculation, like guessing or whatever. It's just too hard to do so. And it would be very irresponsible for me to have any sort of guessing. But I think what we need to understand now, at least this is a very special cases, and this is only on one single clinic. There is something wrong in there. So I think we shouldn't be losing our confidence over the whole professionalism of the Hong Kong IVF procedures. I mean, I've done that in Hong Kong, and everything is very professional and stuff like that. So I think we really need to have to wait and see. I think, of course, I'm sure some of the parents, in consideration of IVF procedure, might be in a huge shock, and they might think, well, let's wait and see. But I think what I want to say is basically the procedures and everything, professionalism in Hong Kong is very, very professional. So I don't think that will be something like a Hong Kong sort of standard sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Right, Nixie. I guess it is somewhat important to also inform the listeners and viewers that IVF in Hong Kong is safe. There hasn't been a lot of major issues. In fact, not many issues at all. I think the last one was in 2011, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think it's very done professionally, really, and the communication loop and everything is good, especially when actually the government came out to say that during the press con that they've already gone through all the procedures, and that is totally fine. So that's why I said the case is a little bit weird why it went down to the police, and we really need to wait and see what really happened there.
I think despite all of that, there has unfortunately still, the incident has had a knock-on effect on undermining public confidence in the IVF process. So the government has to, I suppose, make sure it takes the relevant and appropriate steps to restore public confidence, public trust and confidence.
Yeah. I think what happened is maybe we should really look into after the incident, of course, because you really look into the details. Or maybe we should impose a more restricted sort of procedures or a balance or checking on double or triple like supervisor based sort of procedures on specimen pass on. I think there will be rounds and rounds of passing on specimens, so that might be something not over the procedures. I'm not really sure right now, of course. So would that be something that is necessary to be handled by a doctor or nurses rather than some of the laboratory staff? I'm not really sure. So at the moment, we really need to wait and see to sort of conclude or comment on that.
Yeah, well, and the couples going in will obviously feel even more nervous than usual,
exactly.
right, after hearing this. So, Nixie, any suggestions when the couples go into these clinics? Any suggestions as in, like, what questions should they be asking, or what are the things that they should be aware of to just make sure that, they feel as confident as they can be?
I think basically there's nothing you can do. If you've done your research, I'm sure all of the couples, they would done some research on which center to choose. What I did myself is that I choose the doctor that I really trusted, that my friend used them before, and they're very professional, things like that. And I know some of the people have other concerns. Like my friend, she did her IVF procedure. She says, I just need a female doctor myself. I can't go through with a male doctor and things like that. So it's really very personal. I can't actually give sort of general comments. Right. And at the moment, it's really, just a very personal decision.
Of course, but it is good to know and reassuring that there is wealth of information that couples can find on the internet, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that it's not like buying like a hairdryer or something. That all those doctors are very professional,
Right.
So I'm sure I'm sure they really need to go through sort of like. There's only a handful of centers. It's not like there's 1,000 or so, So you really need to dig into the information, do some more research.
I am the voice of doom and gloom in this. So, I mean, I just want to turn back to the case a little bit. There was some aspects that concerned me personally. Right. For example, the embryo samples identified as not belonging to either one of the two patients.
Yes.
Right? Most of those have now been traced back to the original parents, right? Apart from one specimen, which remains unmatched, right? That for me was hugely concerning. That's, so many weeks later, we're still unable to match that one specimen. So to me, that's had a huge knock-on effect on the reliability and the integrity of the IVF medical process. So I hope, there will be an overhaul into what went wrong and what needs to be done to make sure this doesn't reoccur.
As I mentioned, all those specimens were passed on with multiple staff in one clinic. So that's why I said we really need to look into what happens in those cases, and then whether we need to enhance on like a more, like technology-based sort of scanning, double confirm, triple confirm, or whatever procedures.
The chain of
custody. But at the moment, it's really hard to. Yeah, I mean, it's just very hard to comment or give any sort of idea when we have basically no information whatsoever. We sort of just know what went wrong, whether they found out the parents or not later on. That is basically it. I mean, we don't have further information than that. So I don't think it's even fair to sort of give idea or give comments on what they should really do. I mean, just too early.
Which is why I hope the investigation is able to wrap up, quickly.
Yeah. I spoke to the department, the bureau already. I was like, well, we really need to get your hands into the case. And I mean, one of the things that is definitely needs to be refined will be the reporting system, because the clinic itself is really, really weird. They report to the council instead of the Department of Health, which, as I mentioned, the law require them to report to the Department of Health, which is written in the ordinance of Department of Health, not the council. So I don't know what's wrong with the management there. That really needs to be enhanced. I mean, it's just so weird.
But I guess in some ways, above all else, this case should be rectified as quickly as possible because it just simply gives closure to those that are affected, right? So for those couples that are affected by this, is there any support for them right now?
Yeah, at the moment, I mean, the government already required the center to give them free testing, like DNA testing, matching, all those procedures. And I recall during the press con, they mentioned two of the couples, they couldn't find them yet. What happened is, when before you do PGT test, not all the parents will went for PGT test, which is a DNA test. So they don't have, I think they don't have two of the parents' record, like DNA records, so they cannot actually do matching on that. So they will have to have them to do what I believe will be a blood test to confirm whether which one or matching or whatsoever. So that sort of things they need to do. And all those tests will be free, required by the government. And we'll just have to wait and see at the moment.
Yep. Thank you for joining us today, Nixie. That was Nixie Lam, a lawmaker